And with that, we are thrilled to welcome in John Fanta, who has been ticked, pissed off, upset, and thrilled all over Cleveland sports in the last 48 hours. How you doing today, John?
Haven't we all been, guys? Haven't we all been? I'm doing great. It's great to be with you guys. Let me assure all of you, that day is never happening where Baker Mayfield hoists the Lombardi trophy. You can both be a nice quarterback, but not hoist the Lombardi. That day ain't happening.
All right, yeah.
I think you're right, John.
John, here's the thing. To definitively say it's not happening when he's playing the best football of his career, and his team's 4-2, they should easily be 5-1 at worst. The defense completely let down one game. I think that's too early to say that. Definitively never. I can say that about one quarterback. His name's not Baker Mayfield. His name's Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, stranger things and much worse quarterbacks have won Super Bowls.
Not many.
And you know, John, before you mention that, Jay got season tickets to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Listen, they were my adopted team when I moved to Tampa. They were the Browns, so they became my team. So hell yeah, I root for the Buccaneers hard.
I thought that was Jay setting the cannon off in the big pirate ship down there in Tampa. I could have swore.
I've been outed.
I knew it was you, Jay.
I've been outed. Boom.
Touchdown, Buccaneers.
Hey, you know what? It's exciting football, and I need some of that in my life, so I've got to watch. Tampa Bay is like my new adopted team. I watch the Browns and still root for them, but come on, for crying out loud. I'm not a masochist.
Baker is. Let's just do a few minutes, Mike, with the Browns and get the bad out of the way, and then get to the guards.
I agree with that.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Good idea.
Baker is 7th in PFF grade, so I mean, listen, he's having a good year. Kudos to him. He's doing.
Where's our guy?
But our guy is.
Not on the board.
He's.
Oh my God.
33rd.
Let's see. 23rd. He's going to be a lot worse. I don't know.
No, I said 33rd.
Guys.
28th.
You all dated people, right? You all dated people, okay? At some point in your life, you've been dating a girl, right?
Yeah.
You could have a girlfriend that a couple of weeks in, she comes over to your house for dinner, and the dinner goes awful, and then it just keeps regressing and getting worse and worse and worse, and you're like, I need to rip this Band-Aid off, okay? You could also have the girl where you're like, oh man, she's got a lot of good qualities, and then you start to talk about important things in life, and you're like, oh no. She's not going to be my wife. She's just a great girlfriend. That's Baker Mayfield. He's a nice date. He's a good date to bring in the dance. We're talking about putting the ring on the finger here.
All right,
That's why the Browns didn't stay with Baker Mayfield.
Here's the problem. They broke up with Baker and married Deshaun, and now there's a $170 million alimony waiting to, or a divorce settlement waiting to be written.
Yeah, but to me, the whole argument doesn't have much of a point today, because at the end of the day, we can't change the past. The Browns made a mistake. Nobody's going to deny they made a seismic mistake. And also, we would take Baker Mayfield over Deshaun Watson. We would take Jameis Winston over Deshaun Watson, or at least most people would. I know, G. Bush, you got some thoughts on this whole equation. I'm not here to fight about that.
I was a whole week ago.
Last week, he said
for the record, I would take DTR over Deshaun.
Yeah.
Jason Lloyd. I'd take Seneca Wallace over Deshaun.
Today.
I'd give Charlie Fry a shot. Give Jeff Garcia a look. Give Thaddeus Lewis a shot with a
What's
little option
Spurgeon
pitch.
Wynn doing?
What is Spurgeon Wynn up to?
What about Johnny Manziel? That's the toughest one.
You've gone way too far.
Of clear mind.
Fellas, I'd take Bob Wiley at quarterback if it meant that I got to watch something different. Because at least it would be fun to watch. They made one of the all-time worst organizational moves in football history. The question is now, you're at a point, you're 1-5. The question's not about whether or not this is ever going to get figured out, right? The question is, what's the end result? Clearly, Kevin Stefanski did not just lose thousands of brain cells. I refuse to believe that in the same calendar year, he went from the level that he was at come January to the level that he's at right now, which right now it looks like he's one of the worst coaches in the league. But there's more to that. There's got to be more to that. The point is, Kevin doesn't have control of the situation. This falls on James Haslam. Jimmy Haslam, when he took over the Browns, he promised that the same old dysfunction would go away. And let's face it, he also promised that 1-31 would never be had again. The way this football team's going about it week in and week out, they're not far from 1-31. It's unacceptable. It's inexcusable. Jimmy, we appreciate you spending money, and we can appreciate an owner who wants to win. Nobody's ever going to deny that you want to win. But you got to acknowledge that this was a massive, massive mistake. And I don't want to hear that it's going to take 4 or 5 years to build this thing back up. But the fact is, you got to get a nice draft pick. Look at the Commanders. Look at the Texans and how quickly they got back up. And you got to draft the right quarterback. And guess what? I'm not letting Andrew Berry draft that quarterback. Andrew Berry can't draft anymore. They got to blow it up.
I think that's fair, John. Here's the question, though. Do you trust, and I would fire Andrew Berry already. I agree with you. But I don't trust Jimmy to hire the right GM next to make that pick. That's the catch-22 we're in.
It's a great point, Adam, and I think that's where then, Adam, if I'm a fan, I say, well, then what's the point of the whole operation? Then maybe Jay's right. Maybe he should start watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But, guys, this is the ultimate Cleveland sports show. Why does this show exist? This show exists because there are passionate Cleveland sports fans who live, breathe, sleep, die all this stuff. That is the fact. And nobody is going to get off the Browns wagon. So, yeah, do I have a lack of trust with Jimmy Haslam? I think everybody's wondering what the heck's going on. You just hope. You hope that at some point, and sometimes, you can't show a dog new tricks. You just hope and wish that someday that he wakes up and gets to his senses and says, you know what, I got to hand this all over to somebody who knows football. Not a Mike Holmgren, because we've seen that formula before. Oh, Mike will solve all the problems. To the right person. You're right. There's more doubts than answers with Jimmy Haslam in his tenure. But as bad as it's been, and as dysfunctional at times as the Browns have been, and I remember that hit piece on Haslam ESPN did a couple years ago. You could talk about how bad it's been at times. They still have been in the playoffs 2 of the last 4 years.
Yeah, with a backup quarterback last year. John, on the lack of trust in Haslam, what I don't know, and I think nobody does, but you said you hope that he goes out and finds a guy that knows football. Well, he went out and found a guy that knew baseball to an extent in Paul DePodesta. And the big mystery with this organization is who actually has, the golden key, who has the last say. And so history may prove we end up punting on Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski when, in fact, they're just doing what Paul DePodesta is pointing them to do. And I have long on this show argued that Paul DePodesta is the cancer in the organization, and somehow he had the magic words to whisper to Jimmy that made Jimmy think, you know what? This is the guy. This is the guy that's going to turn our fortunes around. Everybody else in the organization has been replaced multiple times, except for Paul DePodesta. We have lost 2/3 of our games since Paul DePodesta has been in this organization. If he indeed is the loudest voice, it's clear it's time for him to go.
Well, DePodesta hasn't been here the entire time Jimmy's been here.
No, but he has spanned multiple GMs and coaches. Yeah. He was the guy that won the power struggle. Under the Browns with Paul DePodesta,
right,
of baseball fame, he might as well have hired, what's the guy, Jonah Hill? What's his name? Who played Paul DePodesta in the movie?
Jonah Hill, yeah.
He might as well hire Jonah Hill.
No, this isn't hey, let me keep the chief strategy officer and everybody else stays. Everybody's a part in this problem. There's not one person to blame for this problem. But what I do know is people are getting paid a not small amount of money to do what we've seen over the last 6 weeks, and that is unacceptable football. I don't even want to call it that. It looks like the Browns are playing a different sport when you watch the Lions yesterday.
All right,
when you watch the Vikings, when you watch the Steelers even. When you even watch the Steelers, they have buy-in. They have competence. They have organization in what they're doing. No, this is Paul DePodesta, he's the man behind the curtain. Paul DePodesta is the banker in Deal or No Deal. He's in that dark room like the phone rings.
With a lot of envelopes.
And I'm just supposed to... I'm supposed to either press the button or slam the thing down and keep playing to the next round.
John, you're putting your life on the line. You pulled off on the Garden State Parkway to do a hit with us.
Is that the Garden State Parkway or is it the Turnpike or what is it?
This is the Garden State Parkway,
That's what
and
I
this is
thought.
the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And I will stand in the way of a semi for the Cleveland Browns.
Let's go. But if you're going to do it, let's talk about something that we all love and can cheer about, and that's the Guardians. Go.
That's right.
Guys, this is one of the best stories in sports. We talked over the summer, and I said it was as good a story as any in baseball, and it is. I think for baseball, it's wonderful. Of course, for ratings, the New York teams, the Los Angeles Dodgers, but the fact the Guardians are one of the 4 left standing is a model for everybody in this sport. What this team's doing is absolutely exceptional. I think it's one of the most satisfying stories that we've had in Cleveland. One of the most in my lifetime. I'm 29. I can't remember a bigger surprise and a more refreshing team. They're so likable. They're so likable. Their superstar took a hometown discount. The leadoff hitter, Stephen Kwan, anytime you listen to him speak, it sounds like he's on a college team. The guy has so much passion for the city, and he just wants to win. David Fry, that guy was thinking about getting out of baseball and getting a day job because during COVID, his career kind of got derailed, and he faced a lot of hard questions. Matthew Boyd, Alex Cobb. These are guys who were afterthoughts entering this season. Now look at them. Alex Cobb is starting this playoff game tonight. And they have the best pitcher in the game in that closer, Emmanuel Clase. Emmanuel Clase, I'll count on him to get 6 outs. I know they won't actually do it. I'd count on him to get 7 or 8 outs. You know why? I know that guy's going to compete. And that's what this team does. They compete. And what we saw as the series go on, fellas, that I think is crucial against the Yankees, is lineup length. That lineup got longer. Andreas Jimenez started the big inning with a bouncer through the left side. Brian Rocchio has found it. If Josh Naylor finds it, he's got to find it. If he can find it, this lineup will really look the part.
And Hosey.
John, when you take
Hosey.
When you take a look at the series, we start off in New York. How imperative is getting a split coming out of New York coming back home?
It's everything. You got to get one of the first 2 because then G. Bush, it's a 5-game set and you got to win 4 or 5. That's probably not happening. They got to get one of the first 2 here, and that's out of respect for the Yankees and the superstar power they have. But that'd be against any playoff team. You couldn't. It's very hard to take 4 or 5 games from anybody, nor alone this team, nor alone you'd have to go back to the Bronx and do it in game 6 and 7 in all likelihood. They got to get a split here. Tonight, I think a lot of people walk into tonight and they're like, the Guardians are in the best role tonight. The Yankees are the heavy favorite, right? The pressure's on them. The Yankees didn't get tested as much as the Guardians did. The Guardians will not face a pitcher better than Tarik Skubal the rest of the playoffs.
That is correct.
Yeah, you heard me. If they're winning a world championship and you ask them at the end of the run who's the best pitcher you faced, it's going to be Tarik Skubal. Carlos Rodon, he's beatable, guys. You not just look at the ERA, but the Royals got to him. And the Royals had 1 inning. They had a big 4th inning in that game that they got on Rodon, and then they ended up winning the game. For Cleveland, you're playing with house money in game 1. Yeah, the pressure would enter in game 2. Play loose. Come up ready to hit. If that lineup keeps churning, guys, that's the question for this team. When they fell behind in the Tigers series, you know why? They went scoreless for 17 straight innings or 18 straight innings. If this team has some hitting, they're going to win.
John, we were arguing earlier about how Stephen Vogt will use the bullpen and how long the leash will be on the starters. Jay and both think the starters have to go longer. I say absolutely not. He's going to use the bullpen the exact same way. He's going to get to it early and go through all those guys. Which side are you on?
Jason, to me, in a game 5, if he was willing to take Matthew Boyd out after 2 innings, I'm not going to start to think he tries to do a bunch of different stuff now. I think he trusts that bullpen with his life. And you know what, guys? The Guardians have taken this from Tito. Win the day. Win the day and then figure it out the next day. Vogt's going to be bold. I was at something in New Jersey this morning watching a college basketball team practice, and a couple of the people were Yankee fans. And you know what? They turned to me and they said, "Whoa, your manager clicks some buttons." I'm like, that's what he does. This guy is truly, we get cliche in Disney World when we use team terms and stuff. Sometimes it's pie in the sky and terms that are fake, but this is real. This guy truly has a belief in everybody on that roster to deliver. Now, Are we going to see Andrew Walters in a critical situation? I don't know. I don't know about that necessarily. What I do know is this. I think for this ball club, at some point, Jason, you can both say he'll pull the trigger with that bullpen, and I agree with you, but they can't get nothing from Joey Cantillo and Gavin Williams in this series. One of those two guys is going to have to step up at some point and be a bridge.
Yeah.
I think Gavin Williams is going to start Game 4, and I think he should. And he pitched really well. He's pitched really well against the Yankees, and I don't know. I know there's risk with him, but it's not that high because we know Vogt will just pull him out if he doesn't feel it. But there's also as much upside on Gavin Williams as any pitcher that could possibly start for them. So I think he could be a factor in this series.
Absolutely. I thought he might start tonight because I thought if he ever delivered a good start, the Guardians would be set up really well. I mean, think about this. Right now, you have to feel okay about the lineup. Like the last 2 games of the Tigers series with their backs against the wall, the lineup stepped up.
We're not worried about the bottom. We're worried about 3 and 4, which is odd.
I know. And that's kind of why what makes you feel good because honestly, guys, at some point, the laws of averages say one of those two is going to get going. Just like Yankee fans are saying, like Judge is going to get going at some point because he was 2 for 13 in the ALDS. If this team gets starting pitching, they can win a world championship. That's what we've been saying all year. And frankly, in the Tigers series, they got it for the most part. So you see those numbers right there. I mean, that's just glaring for Judge. Clearly, it's not just opponent. I mean, the Royals, it's not like they're world beaters on the mound. It's clearly a mental thing that he's got to try to overcome. Hopefully, it's not against us. But I think when you look at this team, at some point, they've got to get it. They have to get something from Gavin Williams because he's too talented to not. And when you're trying to beat the New York Yankees in a 7-game series, you got to have a surprise. Maybe it's Gavin Williams. Maybe it's a Cantillo. Maybe it's Josh Naylor breaking out and doing something unthinkable because, God, he needs to. But I do think if you're going to beat the Yankees, you've got to have an element of surprise. And that's why, Bull, I kind of like the idea of Williams being a middle game guy in this series. Yeah. And what happens, Bull? What happens if Gavin Williams does show his best? Because you know it as well as I do. If Gavin Williams pitches his best, you could argue he's the best pitcher on that Cleveland roster.
No doubt. He's got the most upside of certainly any starting pitcher on that roster,
Jason,
no doubt.
You looked into his tipping pitches. What did you find?
Something was going on, and they feel like they identified what it was, but I don't know if he's really truly cleared it up or not because his fastball was getting hit harder than it's ever been hit. And he knew it. He was very open about it. I talked to him and I talked to people on the Guardians. He very much was tipping his pitches, and particularly his fastball. And they think that they've identified it, but I don't know.
And this was with a pre-movement. Like it was before he went into the stretch or windup.
I mean,
other teams can figure it out. The Guardians, I'm guessing they figured it out.
Well, the key is because the
key is correcting.
I've played with guys that tip pitches.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to identify it.
Yeah.
But it's even harder to fix it.
Right.
You're talking about idiosyncratic muscle memory.
Sure.
And if your grip, if you're raising your wrist, if you're dropping your elbow, whatever it is you're doing, it's really hard to wash that out of what you do.
Right. Let's wrap it up with this. Give us your is John? Yeah, there he is. Give us your prediction for this series, and I'm putting you on the spot right now because you are Mr. College Basketball. Who is winning the national championship in college hoops? There you go.
The Cleveland Guardians win this series in 7 games. They win this series in 7 games. They take it at Yankee Stadium next Tuesday night. Don't know how, don't know why. I just have a gut feeling about this ball club. And, guys, I just think that they can outgrind. There's nothing too big for this Cleveland Guardians team. And the organizational trajectory of this team could not be better right now with the future prospects coming up, with Bazana making that draft pick, and with some of the guys they have under contract. Like, I know we're focused on the now, but they have Clase, they have Lane Thomas. They've got some control over some of these key pieces. Cade Smith. It's never been a better time to be a Cleveland baseball fan, and that's saying a lot. I just think there's so much that's refreshing, so much to like. Who wins the national championship bowl? Wow, that is a heck of a question.
UConn.
Because no, I don't think it's Connecticut this year. I don't think it's Cooper Flag and Duke, who, by the way, is going to be a daily debate topic discussion point. I'm going to go a little bit outside the box, and I'm going to say Gonzaga and Mark Few finally climbed the mountain.
Wow.
Look out for the Zags this year.
All right,
they got
well,
an experienced group back, and they're going to do it.
And John will be on my podcast this week as well because we love him. Thanks, John. You're the best.
Love you guys. We get to watch baseball tonight. How awesome is that?